Purple Ties Podcast. Great stories of Trevecca Trojans and life on the hill.
Hello again, friends. Michael Johnson with you here on Purple Ties Podcast number 16. And our special guest today is none other than the one and only, the certifiably amazing, the often imitated but never duplicated, Gregory Ruff. Greg, welcome in, buddy. It's a little bit different for you to be on the other side of this microphone, I guess, huh?
Well, it feels a little awkward. It feels like David Letterman when Robin Williams would come in and interview him.
You know, I can't compete with Robin Williams, but I'm really glad that it worked out for us to be together here to tape this very special episode of Purple Ties Podcast. It's homecoming week on the campus of our favorite university. And it's certainly a different homecoming week because really right now, most everything we do is created in a virtual environment for playback at a later time, as they used to say in the business. But I'm really glad that you could join me here as we talk about what has been really an amazing career for you at Trevecca. If memory serves me correctly, you've now been working as a sports information director. Is it 25 years? Am I right about that?
It's 26-ish, but not all at Trevecca. It's I guess 23, something like that at Trevecca, somewhere in that ballpark at Trevecca. So but almost a quarter century.
But that included also some years previous when you were the broadcaster for Trevecca basketball games. So I guess we get to that quarter century mark that way. I wanted to give our listeners, our watchers, an opportunity to maybe relive some great moments as you recall them in, as you said, almost a quarter of a century of work with Trevecca Athletics. And let's start with your earliest remembrance of what was it? Was it a basketball game? I'm going to assume if it stretches back that far. Did you see a game actually before you came to Trevecca as a student?
Yes, I did. I came up for what was then called VIP days, and which is now similar, which was I think before TNT. And I came up with a group, came over with a group from North Carolina, where we lived my last year and a half of high school, and came over with a group. And one of the activities that weekend that we were here was a Trevecca basketball game. And I came in and I sat what is above the sports medicine entrance now, up in the balcony. They didn't have the board there, so we all had our feet hanging down. And I was sitting right there, and bands playing, energy, places packed. I think we were playing Bethel. And all of a sudden, I see movement out of the corner of my eye, and there's this guy dressed in purple and white and a cape, and there's a rope there. And I look up, and he's on this top bar, and I believe it was Finley Knowles, but it was Super Trojan, and he goes swinging out onto the floor, and I was like, all right, you know, they had me at Finley Knowles swinging off the top ring there, so. That was it, and it was a great game, and I loved the guys were dunking everywhere, and Frank was snorting and all that kind of stuff down there, and it was a great thing to experience, and they had me there. I was ready to come in.
Finley Knowles followed Sherwin Neighbors, who was the original Super Trojan, and I never knew the story for sure whether that thermal underwear that they used for their basic outfit was dyed that lavender color, or if they were able to find those at a store somewhere. But anyway, that's really cool. Excuse me. We have been together at many different athletic events for in official capacities, in even when we were students. I think we were known to pile in with a group of people and go. I know that I certainly was. I remember personally one of the highlights was my junior year when, and that may have been your freshman year, if I remember correctly, when we had just an outstanding basketball team led by Melvin Taylor and Mark Williams and some of those guys that were just, I mean, it was an amazing basketball team. Were you there in Jackson, Tennessee at Lambeth the night we won the Western Division of the Volunteer State Athletic Conference when Melvin hit a shot down on the baseline and we won by a point, and we literally stormed the Wendy's there on Highway 45.
Yes. Yes, I was there.
Somebody had a boom box and somebody had a cassette tape, and we danced for quite a while to Cool in the Gang's Celebration. It kind of became a theme song, for Trevecca athletics there for a little while. That was a great night.
Well, let me talk about that in particular, because I think that is something, as we talked about this, I think that's something that made us different, and it's different than what we're able to do now. We had all these students and alums and just sidewalk alums down there in Jackson at a Wendy's taking over, and the team was there with us. So we had a relationship. The student body, fans, everybody had a relationship with the students, student athletes, and we were in there. We took over the Wendy's. It was a great time. It was like literally packed in. I remember some photographs of it. So that was, again, another great memory of early on. And I was just starting to broadcast at that time. I wasn't the broadcaster. I think it was Howard Wilson was the broadcaster at that point, maybe Mark Michaels, but I was actually working at WNAZ by that time, but not doing the broadcast on basketball.
You have had a chance to see some of the really great moments in Trevecca history, with that being one of them. It's almost like winning the conference championship at Tennessee Wesleyan a couple of nights later. Climactic almost. But
yes.
What are some of the other great moments that you personally remember? Let's start with basketball, because that's what we started with. But you've seen a lot of other great athletic achievements across the years. What are a couple of basketball memories that really stand out to you?
Well, any game that we played against Lipscomb and Don Meyer was spectacular, and was great anticipation, whether it was prior to me broadcasting or after. But I think, beating Lipscomb in double overtime at Trojan Fieldhouse, with Avery Patton going off, but it was packed. I mean, it was more than packed. And that was obviously one of my favorite, I can remember even getting emotional during the game watching because it was such a hard fought game. And we won and ended the season for the defending national champions, which were ranked. They were ranked at the time. And that didn't even get us an automatic bid to the national tournament. We still had to win another game after that. But they didn't even get to go back to Kansas City to defend their national champion. They were good. I mean, they had most everybody back. And it was a great game. But that was special. Then going to Kansas City, and I'm a I don't know what, a junior or something like that. And I mean, I did go 7 years undergrad, so I'm not sure what that year that was. But I did a little military service in there in between. So and they may or may not have asked me to take a break a couple of times. But that 86, 87 team going to Kansas City, just a great run. And those were my classmates. You think about it, I was a broadcaster, but those were my classmates. Those were my cohorts. And go out there, and here I am. And there's this little new cable TV setup called ESPN, and Dick Vitale's there. And Gaylord Perry is there. He had just started a baseball program at Limestone State, had him on at one of our games, and had Don Meyer on as a guest there. And I got to broadcast for the NAI radio network. So I not only got to broadcast our games, but I got to broadcast other schools' games during that time.
You may remember, I was there as the adult sponsor.
Yes. I remember there's a classic photo of you and me and Ken Stiegel all in the picture with Bob. I forget Bob's last name, but he was the NAI voice of the NAI, and he was there, and he hired me to do some of the games. So, but yeah, that was, you were you found a way to get there. I'm sure Kendall Poole was there too. And that was just a marvelous time. And to go there and win a couple of games, get to hang around. And,
that's great.
I still contend to this day that team very well could have, without some of the injuries that happened and the illness that happened. I think they could have won that whole thing. And certainly Dick Vitale thought that. So that spoke volumes.
All-time great winning percentage for any of our basketball teams for sure, with the 30 wins and 4-loss record. That was a special time. What about maybe a special memory from the women had an incredible run there for a little while, going to the national tournament in Jackson for like, I don't know how many years in a row. Would you have that at your
11.
fingertip?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. They went, I believe it was 11 straight years they went to the NAI national tournament, which is just unbelievable. But it started with Julie Van Beek and making a great run, and then Gary Van Atta just picking it up and carrying it for another several years himself. And those were just great times because they got deep into. In fact, if you wanted to put on my list, I'm not going to tell you the whole list, but if you wanted to put on my list, one of the great moments was us going over the first year that we went to the NAI national tournament for the women. It was I believe it was Julie's third year, Jennifer Wilson's freshman year.
Yeah.
And we went over there as one of the very low seeds, barely got in, and had one of the biggest upsets that's ever happened at the women's basketball tournament, and won and got to the second round. And that was a great game, great memory, and great coaching job by Coach Van Beek. And but every year they went was just spectacular, and she did such a great job. And then Gary just carried it on. And when, and I didn't get to broadcast this, but you did, the national championship game with the women's basketball team a few years. Was it 2008? You and your son got to do it, and that meant as much to me as if I'd gotten to broadcast it myself. I remember getting teared up taking y'all's picture and seeing you do it. And stuff like that means so much to me. And those are the things that, when I have quiet moments that start talking about thinking about my time at Trevecca, those are the things that mean the most to me. And I'll never forget Tim Shea knew without a shadow of doubt that I wasn't going to let him broadcast the national tournament, that I was going to take back over. He had broadcast most of the games all year. And I said, no, Tim, I'm not. You're broadcasting. You're the broadcaster. You're the voice of the women. I'm not going to take that back over. And, and I know that made him happy. And John Merrick got to do the same thing. John Merrick was my first student assistant. And I'll never forget, he was about done. And some friends of mine came to me wanting me to do NBA football. And I thought about it, and I was getting ready to have family and stuff like that. And I just thought, man, I'm not going to give up Friday nights. And I said, I'm not going to do it, but I have somebody who has. And John Merrick is still broadcasting the NBA football games.
That's fantastic.
And John is a great friend now, and a great father and husband. And, those are the things that I think about a great deal. Billy Byler coming through and teaching me how to better. The guy, he knew how. He still knows how to get the. I don't know anybody who gets more out of every day than Billy Byler, and he just has a plan for every day. I think every minute of every day, and he has a blast doing it. So I'm missing so many people. Ken Barnes was a great student. Your sons, but two of your sons came and helped with us, and Stephanie Byler, can't forget her. She kept us all in line too. And that was just a great run of folks that worked for me as a student in the early years.
What are some of the other things that I'm moving on quickly because I started to get emotional there.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that stand out to you related to the athletic department as a whole? For so long we had, relatively few sports, basketball and baseball and tennis. When you and I were in school, and then volleyball and tennis for the ladies. And, along the way, intercollegiate athletics really began to blossom at Trevecca, expansion of programs, and then ultimately to move to NCAA Division II. Talk a little bit about that progression, because you were there in the middle of all of that. We were originally turned down by the NCAA, and there was a pivotal moment that I know you recall very well. Expand on that just a little bit.
Yeah. Let me touch on a couple of things there, because there's a lot to unpack there, and there's so much. I mean, for 20 something years, not including my 7 years in undergrad. But when I think about Trevecca athletics and my time, when I first started as the SID, we had 5 teams, And my first year, nobody won. I think women's basketball was 15 and 14. We had one award all year. Hillary Montgomery, which was I just blanked now. Hillary
Howard.
Hillary Howard was made the all conference team. That was our only award that entire year.
Yeah.
So I had it wasn't an easy task, but in the same sense, it was easy because I didn't have a lot of press releases to write and stuff like that. I was able to work in. Now, the second year, Scott Jones turned everything upside down with a 30-win season in volleyball. But that was how it started. It was very slow and just a very small athletic department. You mentioned tennis. What a great history for 20 years with Alan Smith. Still maybe our most successful program when you talk about just that 20 years and nationally ranked and all that kind of stuff and going to the national tournament. But baseball has won all the way through. What Bill Green started and those boys and every one of them, they're all a lot of men and grandpas now, but they built something very special there that has lasted all these years. And now Chase Sane is carrying that on. But during that early time when I was at Trevecca, baseball, athletic department switched from Gary Sharp, who actually hired me, and then Alan Smith came in as interim. And I contend Alan Smith was as big a part of anything, not just because he was a coach, but also from the AD perspective and the father figure that he has been to so many. But he made some incredible hires. One of them was Jeff Forehand.
Yeah.
And what Jeff Forehand has done, he gave Jeff Forehand a chance, but Forehand also built the baseball program back. And what he did during that time was just memorable. And I remember Forehand's first year, a little guy named Jonathan Burton went out there on the mound against number 1 Birmingham Southern, and we kicked them. We kicked them, and they were stunned. They were as stunned as we were. But it was great, and what he did, and what he took and built that program with, and what it's carried on to be. So, and then there was this guy that came in along with Rick Underwood that took over the softball program for a year, and just turned what was a program that was about ready to be discarded and turned it into what is now as strong a program as we have. Nationally ranked number 10 last year, and what you and Rick Underwood did was fabulous. And again, your best recruit was Angela Sullivan. But,
for sure.
But we'd have never gotten Angela Sullivan if it had not been for you and Rick, and also the players that you helped recruit during that time. So those are things that mean a lot. Okay, I've blown by some of the stuff that you said. You have to remind me. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was the decision that this is very emotional because I got to sit in his office when he got the call. Jane Greathouse called me down when Dr. Boone was going to get the call the second time, but whether we got into the NCAA Division II. And you talk about a moment, not knowing what was going to be on the other side of that call. And, I'm usually getting called in the principal's office for bad things or the dean's office.
Well, you knew you were going to have to write a press release one way or the other.
One way or the other.
Because we didn't know whether we were going to get in or not. And as I recall, Dr. Boone had been advised not to reapply that second time.
Absolutely.
At least at that point.
By many, many people. And there was, that was when we had just started all the chat rooms and social media was starting and stuff like that. And everybody was just taking shots at Trevecca. Like, oh, I can't believe they reapplied. They shouldn't reapply. NAI passed a rule that said if we reapplied a second time, we were out of the NAI. And he chose to reapply along with Brenda Patterson and Steve Harris and all the people that went in to help putting that proposal together. And he, at the last minute, made the call. I mean, I literally thought, well, he's not going to apply. He made the call to apply and stepped out there. And it was a great decision because we had all our ducks in a row. We had CM Newton was helping us with it. And that was a proud moment when they said we could get in. And then they said we couldn't win, couldn't compete. And what did we do? We went out and we dominated the Great Midwest Athletic Conference, a brand new conference, won the President's Cup, the very first one, sent first teams and first individuals to the NCAA regionals and national tournaments of anybody in our conference. And we've continued to compete. Last year, 2 years ago, number 5 in the country in golf. Again, softball last year, number 10. We've gone to regions. Volleyball's gone to region. And I just, that was a great moment in Trevecca history, one of the best in Trevecca athletic history because we got accepted into the NCAA one day, and then the very next day we announced Mark Elliott as our new athletic director. So that was a great time for Trevecca athletics, and made me very proud as an alum and as an employee.
I'm glad you mentioned Dr. Brenda Patterson and
Mm-hmm.
and Dr. Steve Harris. Their work in those early days while we
Yep.
were slogging through mounds of
Yes.
paperwork and applications, and there were a couple other people too. I'm sorry, that my memory is failing me now. That
Larry
really
Knight.
worked. Larry Knight, yes. Um, it's important when these stories are told about the progression of things. It's homecoming week, and I was out at McClurkin's gravesite, with folks the other day, filming a segment. We honor our founder every year,
Yes.
but I think it's important for us to honor others down through history who have made a pivotal difference in the life of the university, and that's certainly true with athletics. We all stand on the shoulders of people who come before us. As cliche as that sounds,
Yeah,
it's the truth. So you're standing on the shoulders of Glenn English, who was the first
Yep.
ever, SID
Absolutely.
that we had at Trevecca. And I look back at years that you and I have been around Trevecca, and people can call us homers if they want to, but it's down deep in our blood, bud.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've seen the highs, we've seen the lows, and we've seen what it takes to muddle through the mundane from time to time. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you here is because I think it's important for the Trevecca community to see you on the other side of this interview and recognize that you've been a great gift to us as an institution. Obviously, I feel deeply for you as a friend and professional colleague, but I wanted to be able to provide a platform for people to hear you talk a little bit about what Trevecca has meant to you. You're twice degreed, and you're not far from that third one. And
Trying.
I tell you what, buddy, when you look back on your life at Trevecca, it's somewhat an improbable journey, and yet it's a story of perseverance too.
Yeah.
What has kept you going across the years? What is it that has driven you to do the work and to succeed sometimes when it would have been easy just to give up?
Well, I think for me, a guy like David Deese means everything, and if I can get through this, it'll be a miracle. But when I was an undergrad, I didn't always follow the rules, and I made some bad decisions. And there were some people that didn't think I deserved another chance, and David Deese did. He embraced me, walked alongside of me, mentored me, and gave me the keys to be the voice of the Trojans. Literally, when some people didn't think I should be in college, and I made some pretty bad mistakes, Michael. But I came back to prove that wasn't who I was, and David allowed me the opportunity to do that, and I will never ever forget that. And there were other people who did that too. I was told he was told at one point that I shouldn't be allowed to broadcast at all because I stuttered too much. And instead of turning me away, he told me, "You need to go get a tape recorder. You need to record yourself and listen back." And I did that. And then, against his boss's advice, put me back on the air to broadcast. And then, that turned into other jobs. And seriously, I was on the sideline during the Music City Miracle, one of the most famous plays in NFL history, broadcasting on ESPN worldwide. And that just doesn't happen because of me. It happens because of people like David Deese. And then, he believed in what we were doing so much. Not many people know this story, but I was laying in bed. I was working at a TV job, and out of the blue, I was praying to God, and God said, "Call David Deese about a job." and I could not go to sleep. I had a job, right? A job I loved, and I couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't go back to sleep. So I finally wrote down on my nightstand, called David Deese in the morning. So first thing I was still laying in bed and called him. And we talked. And I said, I had a nudge to call you about a job. And he says, well, we really don't. And then I told him the story of what I'd done the night before. And he said to me, he said, hang on, let me call you back. Calls me back 15 minutes later and says, I think I've got something worked out. And he worked out a way for me, and it took about a year for it to happen, but he worked out a way for me to come in because they had gone a year without broadcasting, and he believed in broadcasting so much that he wanted to make that happen again. He hired me, and we went out and we sold ads, and we got back on the broadcast
of the games, right?
Of the games,
Broadcasting
of the on the radio, yes. And but he got me hired and got me back in here, and then. And there's one other key moment that involves David Deese and David Klimkowski. There was talk of maybe that the radio stations might sell sometime, and there was this thing of live streaming video that was just starting. And David Klimkowski and I went to David and showed him how we could do it, and we worked with this guy that came out of nowhere to provide us with bandwidth. And we broadcast Trevecca college volleyball before anybody was even doing it. And that paved the way for when the radio stations went on, that we were already up to speed with how to live stream. And we actually live streamed volleyball first and broadcast the whole season. And we were the only college in the entire country broadcasting volleyball, live streaming video. Now, it wasn't very good, but our parents got to see it. And by the time we got to basketball, we'd had it down pretty good. And we went all the way up to 720. Instead of 360, people talk about 1080 now, stream bandwidth or whatever the level of broadcast. We thought it was resolution. Thank you. I couldn't. I'm 58 now, Michael. So sometimes these things escape me. But but we thought it was great stuff. We went from 360 to 420, and but that was it. And that was David Klimkowski figuring out how to do it, just like he continues, like what we're doing now. He figured all this out. So I have not mentioned everybody that I should, but I could not go on without David Deese and David Klimkowski and what they have meant to me and my journey. They have believed in me and my crazy ideas and my dreams, and they've allowed me to live out a fantastic thing that has seen me have like you said, 2 degrees, working on a third, and have a daughter that's a graduate as well.
Yeah. As we begin to wrap it up, you've worked with Mark Elliott now for how many years? He came on in 2011.
7, yeah, 7 or 8, 9, something. A long time.
No, it had to be 2011 because I remember I was on my way to Louisville for Nazarene Youth Conference when I got the news, and so that's been 9 years, and there's been a lot of challenges associated with that. We're not funded like a lot of the programs that we compete against. We're in a conference that involves an incredible amount of travel. There are some real challenges that are there. But if you could sit in a chair that looks out from a porch like you do often at your house, looking at those beautiful sunsets, in the the last decade or so of your work, as you project out into the future, what do you see for Trevecca athletics? What do you see Mark working on? What do you hear that gives you reason to tell people this is something that's still worth investing in?
We have about 270 athletes, student athletes. And if I had the time, I could tell you a story about each one of them and their story, how they got to Trevecca and what Trevecca has done in their lives. And Dwight Ragsdale talks about the Trojan Boosters Endowment. It's an investment for eternity. And it is, because just like me, just like you, Trevecca changed my life.
Yeah.
And when these student athletes come to Trevecca to play sports, and that's what they're all thinking about, by the time they're done with their 4 years or 2 years for JUCO, Trevecca has impacted their life. The professors, chaplain, the administrators, their teammates, their coaches impact their life and shape them. And I see it time and time and time again. And most of them have this unique story of how they got here. Some of them are Nazarene kids that come here, but a lot of them aren't. And they've never heard of Trevecca, and they've never heard of the Nazarene Church. And so it grows their faith. I hear time and time again, Trevecca has strengthened my faith. Even ones who maybe didn't, they say, I never heard of Trevecca. I wasn't necessarily, in church every Sunday or whatever. Maybe not at all. And by the time they're done here, Trevecca and God has come into their life and changed their lives and strengthened them. So that's why it's worth it. And then we win. We have success. Yeah. We kick some tail every once in a while. I think that's okay to say, right? That's Nazarene.
I think so.
But yeah, we have success, and we have coaches who build great character in our student athletes and represent us well. And it's not easy. It's not. Other teams have more scholarship, they have more funding, they have less travel. But I know this. I don't know. This is like one of those things that we've talked about it, maybe not talked about it, but I see us having a new athletic facility someday, and it will change everything if we do. We've been talking about it for a long time. That needs to happen. And if somebody wants to call it Ruff Arena, that would be okay too. I was born in Lexington during the Rupp era. So that's my dream, is to call it Ruff Arena. But, we need that. And so we need to figure out a way to make that happen. I know Holly and Dr. Boone and others are trying to make that happen. This isn't a great time to try to do that because of the pandemic, but maybe it will. Or may it be so. But I think that's something that Mark is working on hard as well, along with Holly and everybody else. But I think there's a day when we'll be in a different conference that better fits our educational zone and travel and things like that. And I think when that happens, that will make a difference as well. But what really is the future is what is our past, and that is how Trevecca changes people's lives. And that's a reason to invest. It's a reason to support these coaches. And if you can throw a few dollars their way, or sponsorship of broadcast, or buy us a new broadcast truck, that would be great too. but hey, for Pete's sake, somebody build us a press box at baseball and softball. That would be great too, so that I can get out. I'm getting old, and it's kind of chilly out there in the outfield broadcasting softball.
The blood thins out over time.
Yes, yes, it does. Well, Greg, along with the hair.
Yeah. Greg, it's been a joy to chat with you about this. And
can I get one more thing in before you wrap it up?
Absolutely, yeah.
I want to thank you. You've always believed in me too, and we have spent a lot of. I miss the road trips. I miss trying to get off the exit in time to make it to the bathroom because we could. Sometime, if anybody wants to ask Tim Shea about it, he still cracks up about one particular trip where we barely made it. And I drove up the wrong way at a truck stop trying to get to the bathroom and put everybody's life in danger. I was dating my wife now at the time, and I was on the phone with her and was just totally distracted by her love for me, and that somebody actually wanted to date me. So that was what was the distraction. Anyway, great trips, great memories with you, and driving an hour out of the way to go to Lambert's, and driving all night from Kansas City to Jackson to see the women play, because both our teams are in national tournaments halfway across the country. Those are things that I want to, but just thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being my supporter and encouraging me. And it means a lot to me.
Well, this has been a special opportunity for me as well. Thank you for your years of service to Trevecca, and thank you for loving God and loving people and showing that in the way that you live every day.
Thank you.
I can't think of a better way to wrap it up. You've been listening to Purple Ties podcast number 16. It's homecoming week at Trevecca. Go Trojans, even though we don't have any real games to play this weekend.
Go Trojans.
Hey, that game you talked about with Lipscomb from 1987. It's on YouTube. You can go look it up if you got a basketball itch.
Absolutely. That would be I watch it every once in a while.
Stay well, friends.
All right.
That's all for now.
Purple Ties Podcast. Great stories of Trevecca Trojans and life on the Hill.